everyone, I'm Mirela Ciobanu, lead editor with The Papers, and we are live here at EIC, the European Identity and Cloud Conference, where I'm about to speak with Michael Jones on the post-quantum apocalypse that is already upon us. So we are going to talk about post-quantum computing and its importance in financial services. Mike, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah. So your keynote at EIC titles is the post-quantum apocalypse already upon us. What do you mean by that? I mean, is this a future risk we are anticipating, or we are already living through the early stages of quantum transition today?
So I chose that intentionally provocative title to get people to think about where we are. I mean, as background, there's the possibility, or depending upon who you talk to, the likelihood that sometime in the next decade or so, there will be quantum computers that are capable of breaking the cryptographic algorithms that we're using now to protect things on the internet and in our applications. Classical algorithms like RSA encryption or the elliptic curve encryption and signatures are all vulnerable. Now, we don't know when, we're not certain if, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the conclusions I reach at the end of my talk is how do you convince people to act now in the presence of uncertainty? And why should they do that rather than just wait?
Yeah.
So one of the reasons that we want to act now is that there's an attack which can be executed now called Store Now, Decrypt Later, where particularly nation states and intelligence agencies have the capability to store vast amounts of encrypted traffic. And even though they can't break it now, if the post-quantum computers are able to, or if the quantum computers are able to break the encryption algorithms in use now, then all the stuff that you thought you were sending in secret right now becomes visible. And so the first question that I'll ask my audience is, what are you sending now on the internet or in other applications that you would like not to be revealed in the future?
Yeah. But we talk about, encryption, protecting apps. You also had some technical terms for a non-technical, audience, and mostly businesses that are outside the scientific community. How would you explain quantum computing in practical terms?
Quantum computing takes advantage of some of the mysteries of quantum physics that none of us are experts at. There are people who are, where instead of sort of step by step in a classical computing, using an algorithm to solve something, quantum computers have this mystery where they can, in theory, try all the possible outcomes at once. And if there's a good one, it settles onto it. So you don't have to try every possibility. The quantum computers, I would say, guess correctly in ways that I can't possibly explain. But I do trust that that's the case. So, for instance, in terms of cryptography, rather than by brute force trying every possible key until one of them works, the quantum computers will be able to mysteriously find the key that works without trying.
Yeah. You put this a lot in the mystery side, but I have the feeling that, and we also talked more, let's say, on the negatives. What can happen if the quantum computing, it really breaks through. But I'm also thinking that there are some benefits that financial industry can benefit out of these calculations and algorithms that quantum computing can develop. So beyond the cybersecurity risk, what opportunities do you see for financial services in this area?
I'm not an expert in this area. I do know that there are applications of quantum computing that can help solve problems for human benefit. So for instance, there's problems that are just as hard as cryptography with benefit to people. So for instance, gene mapping and trying to design medicines that are specific to your DNA and the way your body works, that right now that's intractably hard for some of the problems that they want to solve. Whereas I have read, and again, I'm not an expert in this area, that the same mysterious properties of quantum computing that could solve a cryptographic problem could also solve gene mapping problems and drug design problems, and other currently very hard problems that nonetheless could be useful.
Yeah. And in the beginning of our discussion, when you talked about your presentation, you also stressed on this fact that if quantum computing is breaking through. And I was curious because one of these days, we also had a presentation on quantum computing. And on the slides, there were some data about Microsoft, Meta, everyone preparing actually. Yes. And the dates actually were quite near us. So getting ready for Google was something like 2029. Meta and Amazon were around 2030. How do you comment on this? So we see that big players are actually preparing. And is that such a mysterious topic or?
No. Both some of the large companies with data to protect and customer accounts to protect, but also many of the countries around the world are all preparing. I'm from the United States. There's guidance by the U.S. government about when applications used for national security and for finance and commerce have to be prepared to use quantum-safe algorithms. Again, not too far away. Other governments, China, Korea, Europe, whatnot, all have guidelines about this. So, I don't have to try to guess when this will happen, and that's not the right question in my mind. I do trust that there's both engineers trying to build the physical quantum computers and governments studying and experts studying the progress of that. And they believe that it's a large enough possibility that they're saying we need to act now. And so this is really the point of my talk later today, is to try to explain to people not only that it's important to start the transition now, but to talk practically about what are the different steps that the industry and eventually your organization are going to have to go through to get there, and to think about practically what do we do next.
Yeah, and since you mentioned the practical steps, and this interview will be after your presentation, maybe you can give us some advice now on how organizations can get prepared.
Sure. The next to last slide in my presentation is all about these steps. And the theme of the slide is the hard things.
The hard thing.
The first hard thing is for cryptographers to develop algorithms that will survive quantum computers. That's hard, but, cryptographers do these sorts of things, so great. The second step is to develop algorithms and standards that use those algorithms. And in fact, there was a big development just yesterday that a new IETF standard, RFC, was published on using what's called MLDSA, which is a post-quantum signature algorithm for use in internet protocols for Jose and Cose, which is used for signing things for Analysts, for OpenID Connect, and lots of other protocols on the internet. That was finished.
Yeah.
So that means that there's a standard recipe for how to do a post-quantum signature with these protocols. Well, okay, you need the recipe. That's step 2. Step 3 is to apply the recipe, the standard, to people's software, to the software you're using, or if you're a software vendor, to the products and services that you have. That's hard. It requires work. But again, that's what responsible software developers and vendors are going to be doing at this point. So that's step 3. Step 4 then comes to the individuals running and organizations running software and services for themselves and for their organizations, which is they need to take the updated software and install it and use it. And, that seems easy, but anytime you do a major upgrade to a piece of software, you have to understand what's going to keep working, what's going to break, what are you going to then be able to work with, and where do you need a partner or one of your vendors to also do an update in a coordinated fashion so that, you don't install the new thing, but then that breaks your connections with those that you want to communicate with. So there's a lot of coordination required. So that's what I'm calling step 4.
Yeah.
But jumping to my punchline, but the hardest thing of all, I think, in all of this is convincing people to act now in the face of uncertainty so that if the quantum relevant, cryptographically relevant quantum computers come into existence at an unknown date, and we may not even know when they come into existence, that you're done, that you've finished preparing, you've updated all your installed base, all the software you're using to be ready. And in fact, I'll make that point. Just thinking about what is all the software that you use or that your organization uses that uses cryptography. Do you even know? Is there any way to know? It's most of it.
Yeah.
And so this is very pervasive, which is why it's not going to wait until the Scientific American publishes an article saying, oh, next month is, the time. Next month is going to be way too late.
Yeah. But now I have a question, might be silly. I have this feeling that getting ready might be an expensive thing and for a business. And the budgets usually, the decision of investing in something can come from the CEO. And at some point with taking the steps, you made an analogy with a recipe, with the standards. And in a way I had that feeling, oh, okay, I understand it. Mike is speaking my language. But then again, you mentioned about algorithms, software, standards. And I have this feeling that this is a very, at this point, technical topic. How can we, convince CEOs that it's now a good thing to invest. To develop all these technologies or these safeguards to put them in place. How should our message be? Or I don't know. I'm curious how the reaction is so far, not necessarily from the, let's say, technical audience, but more like business-facing audience regarding this topic.
That's a very good and multifaceted question.
I talked a lot.
There's many answers to that, and it depends on who you are and where you're sitting. So, for instance, if you're in Europe, there's legislation already in place that if you're going to sell to government agencies or be involved in European research or business contracts with the EU or with many of the member states, before a certain date, the software you're using has to be survivable in a post-quantum world. And so there is a legal and practical requirement that you're going to stop being able to sell your software or sell your services. People will stop using your product. And so it's not a nice to have someday if we need it. In many of the cases for businesses and for software vendors and for banks and for the agencies regulating them, they're telling them because, your finances and your customers' finances will be at risk, you're going to have to fix the problem or the potential problem before they're actually at risk. So when particularly you're dealing with high-value products and services, there is some understanding that this is not optional. This is a survival necessity.
Okay. And we are more than half of the event so far. What is your take of EIC?
I've been coming to EIC for a very long time, since it was originally in downtown Munich at a science pavilion, and then it was in the outskirts of Munich for a long time, and now it's been in Berlin for several years. And it's always a place where I go to have conversations with other people that are building things or designing things that matter. I mean, we designed some of the protocol called OpenID Connect, which is now used for an awful lot of the web logins, even though most people have never heard the name. But if you're doing sign in with Google or sign in with Apple or signing into Salesforce or most web properties at this point, you're using OpenID Connect. We designed aspects of OpenID Connect sitting in the lobby of the EIC hotel in the outskirts of Munich in Unterschleißheim. And, that sort of opportunity continues to this day. It's a place where other people working on standards and developing implementations of them come together and we collaborate. Now, there's also great content in many of the sessions. Yeah. And I wouldn't be giving a session if I didn't believe that. But, and KuppingerCole would, I think, support this, that a lot of the value that they're providing is bringing practitioners together and letting them mingle. And they do a good job of setting up events like Spree River Cruise last night so that people could get together and have informal conversations. And I know I will work with some people from the Netherlands and from Poland here in person on some future protocol work that we're doing about trust establishment. So I enjoy it personally. I try to use the time to take advantage of the fact that we're here together.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Mike, for today's conversation. And indeed, I noticed that here there is a strong community with a strong history that, aims to achieve the digital identity and whole ecosystem, and security, and that involves, all stakeholders.
Yeah, indeed. I've been in this space since 2005, when Microsoft's chief identity architect, a gentleman named Kim Cameron, told me what digital identity was, which I didn't know. And he said, well, the internet was built without an identity layer.
Yeah.
You should come work on building it with me. And I decided that sounds like a good gig. I'll do that. And we've made a lot of progress since 2005, but we're in no way done. So it continues to be an important endeavor together.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.